In the heart of a luxury flight bound for London, a young flight attendant looked a little too long at a quiet black family in modest clothes and laughed. What she didn't know, one phone call would bring her to her knees. Right in front of the passengers she tried to humiliate. This is a story about prejudice, dignity, and the kind of power that doesn't need to shout. But before we begin this unforgettable journey, take a moment to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and turn on the notification bell. Your support helps us bring more powerful, thought-provoking stories to life. Stories that awaken hearts and challenge the way we see the world. In the busy VIP lounge at JFK International Airport, where champagne glasses clinked and designer luggage gleamed under the soft golden lights, a small family quietly entered. They did not wear labels or luxury, but there was something elegant in their calm presence. The man wore a simple beige jacket, the woman a modest blue dress, and their little girl clutched a stuffed elephant while looking around curiously. That was Malik Thompson, a reserved man with deep eyes, always observing more than speaking. His wife, Aisha, moved with grace and patience, gently fixing their daughters a job every few minutes. Their daughter, Lana, was full of energy, skipping a little with excitement. They held first-class tickets to London on Sky Vista Airlines. But by appearances alone, they looked out of place in that exclusive lounge. Across the room, a young flight attendant named Jessica Holtz walked in with her crew badge clipped to a crisp blazer. She was beautiful, sharp-featured, and confident, the kind of confidence that borders on arrogance. She noticed a family sitting quietly near the glass wall, sipping orange juice. She frowned slightly. Jessica had worked for Sky Vista for 3 years. She took pride in the elite service, the refined guests, the image of wealth and power. And these three, they looked like economy-class travelers who had wandered in by mistake. She leaned over to the receptionist at the counter and whispered, "Are those three supposed to be here? In first class?" The receptionist looked at the manifest on her tablet and nodded. Yes, Thompson family. Seats 1A, 1B, and 1C. Jessica raised an eyebrow. Interesting. Malik noticed her glance but remained silent. He had dealt with looks like that before. Many times. Aisha, sensing something, leaned in and whispered, "Ignore her, Malik. Let's just enjoy this trip." Malik smiled faintly. "We will. This is Lana's first time flying overseas. It's going to be special." Jessica, meanwhile, returned to her duties, but her eyes lingered once more on the family. She didn't say anything. Not yet. The boarding announcement rang through the lounge. Sky Vista Flight 702 to London now boarding. First-class passengers, please proceed to gate A5. Malik rose and offered his hand to Lana. "Let's go." They walked calmly to the gate, unaware that the real turbulence wouldn't be in the air. It would begin right there on the jet bridge. And Jessica was waiting. Jessica stood at the jet bridge with a tight smile as the Thompson family approached. Her eyes scanned them once more. Plain shoes, no designer bags, soft-spoken voices. She couldn't hide the hint of distaste. "Tickets, please," she said, though the scanner was right behind her and other first-class passengers were passing through freely. Malik handed over their boarding passes calmly. Jessica glanced down at them, then back up, her brows furrowing. "Sir," she said, lowering her voice, "you're aware this is first-class boarding, right?" Aisha's smile faded. Malik nodded once. "Yes, that's exactly what we booked." Jessica forced a smile, trying to keep her voice light, but laced with superiority. "Oh, I see. Well, we just had some mix-ups in the past. Some passengers accidentally wander into this queue from business or economy." Malik's tone was steady. "There's no mistake." Jessica blinked, then waved them through without another word. But as they stepped into the cabin, she followed closely behind. The family found their seats. First row, wide leather seats with golden trim and touchscreen panels glowing softly. Lana giggled and tapped the button to lift her seat back. "Sweetheart," Aisha said gently, "wait until we're in the air." Jessica hovered near the galley, watching them settle in. A man in a suit seated nearby leaned over and whispered to her new money with a smirk. Jessica replied under her breath, "I don't even think they're that." Soon, the other passengers filled in: business tycoons, influencers, diplomats. Jessica continued her service, but her glances toward Malik and his family became more frequent, more judging. Then, 15 minutes before takeoff, Jessica walked down the aisle and stopped in front of them. She knelt slightly to be at Lana's level and said with a sugary voice, "Sweetie, are you sure you're supposed to be sitting up here?" Aisha's eyes narrowed. "Excuse me." Jessica stood up, her face still composed. "I'm just trying to avoid any confusion. Sometimes seats get swapped. It happens." Malik's voice, calm but sharp, interrupted. "There is no confusion. We're in our correct seats. I suggest you check your system." Jessica's polite facade slipped. "Sir, I'm going to ask you to step out for a moment so we can clarify things." Lana clutched her stuffed elephant tighter. "Mama, what's wrong?" Aisha put her arm around her daughter, lips tight, trying to keep her calm. Passengers nearby began turning their heads. Jessica tapped her crew radio. "Can we get a supervisor up here? We might have a seat issue." A low murmur began to rise. Phones were quietly lifted. Someone was recording. Malik didn't move. He took a slow breath. Aisha leaned in, voice trembling. "She's embarrassing us in front of our daughter." Jessica crossed her arms. "Sir, either step off the plane or I will have to call security." Malik reached into his pocket, pulled out his phone, and calmly dialed. The air grew heavy. "Who are you calling?" Jessica asked with a scoff. Malik raised the phone to his ear and said just 3 words. "Tell him now." Jessica stood still, unsure whether to call security or stand her ground. Malik's composure unnerved her. He wasn't angry. He wasn't loud. He was deliberate. Aisha whispered, "Malik, who did you call?" He didn't answer. He only looked forward, waiting. Meanwhile, the tension on the plane was escalating. 2 passengers nearby began murmuring. Are they being kicked off? Just for sitting in first class? That's insane. Jessica tapped her foot, checking her crew radio. "Security, respond to gate A5. First class cabin. Possible seat dispute." Suddenly, her personal phone buzzed in her blazer pocket. She didn't recognize the number. International, long string of digits. She answered, trying to sound professional. "This is Jessica Holtz." The voice on the other end was cold, powerful, and precise. "This is Adrian Vale, Chief Executive Officer of Sky Vista Airlines. I was told by Mr. Malik Thompson that there's an issue on board." Jessica froze mid-breath. Her voice dropped. "Why, yes, sir. I'm handling it." "No," Adrian cut in. "You are not handling it. You are escalating it." Jessica's knees weakened slightly. The name Malik Thompson had sounded familiar, but now it clicked. Her eyes shot toward the man seated calmly in 1A. Adrian continued, "Malik Thompson is one of our founding investors, one of the largest private shareholders in this airline. You are addressing him and his family with disrespect, in front of other passengers, based on your personal bias. Do you understand the gravity of that?" "I didn't know, sir. You judged him by his clothes." Jessica couldn't respond. The entire cabin had fallen quiet. All eyes were on her. Adrian's voice dropped low. "You have 30 seconds to apologize, publicly, or you'll be removed before the plane takes off. I'll be watching the footage myself." She swallowed. Malik lowered his phone, without a word, and locked eyes with her. Jessica stepped forward, her face pale, her voice shaking. "Mr. Thompson, Mrs. Thompson, I deeply apologize for the misunderstanding. It was entirely my fault." Lana peeked out from behind her mother, whispering, "Mama, why is she scared?" Aisha gently stroked her daughter's hair and didn't answer. Jessica's hands trembled. She knelt down slowly, right there in the aisle, her voice cracking. "I'm sorry, truly." Malik gave her a look that wasn't cruel, but firm. "We don't want trouble, Jessica. We only wanted respect." The captain emerged from the cockpit, alerted by the disturbance. He walked straight to Malik, saluted respectfully, and said, "Sir, the crew is now fully briefed. We apologize for the inconvenience. Please enjoy your flight." Jessica remained kneeling, unsure what to do next, and the cabin erupted into a mix of stunned silence and applause. Jessica's eyes burned, not from tears but humiliation. The aisle felt colder now, and the stares from other passengers were sharp and unforgiving. Her knees ached against the carpet, but she didn't dare move without instruction. The captain glanced at her and spoke with a tone of finality. "You may return to the galley. You are relieved of duties for this flight." Jessica stood slowly, her hands trembling as she backed away, her eyes never meeting Malik's again. Malik said nothing. He simply adjusted his daughter's blanket and whispered something to her in a voice too soft for anyone to hear. Lana smiled again, innocence returning to her face. The air in the cabin shifted. Before it was filled with judgment and tension. Now it brimmed with quiet awe. A middle-aged man across the aisle leaned forward and said with a nod, "That was something else, sir. You handled that with class." Malik gave a small, respectful nod. "Thank you." Another woman, who had been silently watching everything unfold, opened her tablet, searched for Sky Vista's shareholder profile, and her jaw dropped. She whispered to the man next to her, "He's not just rich, he helped build a company." Aisha turned to her husband and placed her hand on his. I wanted to scream at her, but you kept us all calm. Even me. Malik chuckled quietly. No need to scream when the truth can do the shouting. Moments later, a new flight attendant approached, clearly nervous but warm in demeanor. "Mr. Thompson, Mrs. Thompson, please allow me to personally ensure you are comfortable for the rest of the flight. Drinks? Anything your daughter might want." Malik nodded. "A warm tea for my wife, and chocolate milk for Lana, if possible." The flight attendant smiled. "Of course. Right away." The plane began to move toward the runway. The engines hummed. The lights dimmed to a soft glow. As they ascended into the sky, Malik looked out the window. Lights from the city stretched below like veins of gold in the dark. Aisha leaned on his shoulder. But behind them, Jessica stood by the emergency exit door in silence, clutching a tissue in her hand. Her headset buzzed in her ear, but she ignored it. Her mind was replaying the voice of the CEO. "You judge him by his clothes." Those words clung to her like frost. At cruising altitude, the cabin settled into calm. Tray tables clicked down. The soft chime of seatbelt signs faded, and the night sky stretched endlessly beyond the windows. But for Jessica, standing stiff near the back galley, time didn't move. It dragged. She couldn't stop thinking about it. Not just the call, not just the CEO, but the look on Malik's face. Quiet, steady, and unshaken, even as she tried to strip away his dignity. She remembered the way she'd smiled at the white-collar passengers in front, offered them wine, even laughed at their bad jokes. And then the way she'd narrowed her eyes at Malik and his family. The way she asked the little girl if she was in the right seat, as if she couldn't possibly belong. Every second since the phone call had felt like an unraveling. Her identity as a polished, respected flight attendant was crumbling under the truth, not just of who Malik was, but who she had chosen to be. At the front, Lana giggled, sipping her chocolate milk through a twisty straw. Aisha and Malik were watching an old movie together on the in-flight screen, heads leaning against one another like no storm had ever passed. Then came the final blow. Another phone buzzed in Jessica's pocket, this one from the internal airline app. Notification. Disciplinary review scheduled. From Human Resources. Subject. Passenger misconduct complaint. She felt the blood drain from her face. Jessica turned to the galley wall, placing one hand on the metal counter, breathing through her nose. She felt tears brimming again, not because of the punishment, but because of the reflection. She had always prided herself on being professional, polished, efficient, but beneath that had always lurked her bias, her assumptions, her silent judgments. And tonight, they weren't silent anymore. From the corner of her eye, she saw the co-pilot step out and approach Malik, offering a handshake with a respectful tilt of the head. "Mr. Thompson, on behalf of the crew, thank you for your patience and grace. We hope this won't affect your view of Sky Vista." Malik smiled politely. "I didn't lose faith in the airline, only in a few of its people, but I believe people can grow." That hit Jessica, like a quiet thunder. She turned away before anyone could see the tear finally rolled down her cheek. She realized then it wasn't Malik who had been humbled. It was her. The cabin lights dimmed to a soft blue as the night deepened over the Atlantic. Most passengers were asleep or lost in their own little worlds. Aisha and Lana dozed peacefully, their heads leaning together under a warm blanket. Malik remained awake, watching the stars outside the window, his fingers lightly tapping the armrest. Jessica, meanwhile, had retreated fully to the galley, far from the passengers. Her body was still, but her mind raced. For the first time in her career, she had no control, no charm to cover her mistake, no policy to defend her actions, only the truth. She had misjudged a man based on nothing more than his clothes, his skin, his silence. Her phone buzzed again, but she didn't check it. Instead, she did something she'd never done in flight. She took off her name tag. It clinked gently against a metal drawer beside her. At the front of the plane, Malik quietly rose and made his way to the restroom. As he passed the galley, he noticed Jessica standing alone. Her back was turned. She didn't see him. For a moment, he stood there. Then, with the same calm he'd carried all evening, he said softly, "You were afraid of being wrong, but it takes courage to admit you were." Jessica turned, startled. Her eyes met his, and for once, she didn't look away. "I've made assumptions before," Malik continued, "and I've had to learn the hard way. But what matters is what you do after you realize it." Jessica's voice cracked. "I don't know if I deserve to still be here." Malik considered that. "Maybe not," he said, "but if you stay, make it mean something. Next time, look deeper than what you see." Jessica nodded slowly. She couldn't bring herself to thank him. It didn't feel right. Not yet. But his words sat in her chest like a weight, and, strangely, like a light. He walked back to his seat, tucked Lana in again, and kissed Aisha's forehead before sitting down with a soft exhale. Jessica stood a while longer, eyes glistening, gripping the edge of the drawer as the engines hummed softly in the background. Morning light began to creep into the aircraft windows as the plane neared its descent into London. The clouds below were thick and silver, but inside the cabin, a gentle peace had returned. Lana stirred first, rubbing her eyes and sitting up with her elephant clutched tightly. "We're landing soon, baby," Aisha whispered softly, brushing back her daughter's hair. Malik had not slept. He watched the horizon with quiet thought, his fingers laced together. Despite the long flight and the storm of conflict earlier, his mind was clear. Jessica stepped out from the galley for the first time since their exchange. Her uniform was still pristine, but she no longer wore her badge. Her steps were slower. She didn't glance around the cabin for attention. She wasn't performing anymore. As she walked past Malik's row, she stopped, not to speak, not to explain, but simply to bow her head. Malik nodded in return. It wasn't forgiveness. He had given that already. It was acknowledgement. She walked away quietly. The aircraft touched down smoothly at Heathrow. Passengers gathered their belongings, and first class was escorted off the plane before others. A line of staff stood by the exit to greet departing guests. As the Thompsons exited, the co-pilot offered another handshake, and a steward thanked them for choosing Sky Vista. But before stepping off, Malik turned to Lana and asked, "Do you remember what I told you before we left?" Lana nodded. "You said to be kind, even when others are not." Malik smiled. "And what else?" She thought for a moment, then whispered, "Never judge someone just by what they wear." Aisha looked at both of them, her eyes shining. As they stepped into the terminal, a sleek black sedan waited by the VIP entrance. A personal escort from the airline opened the door for them. Passengers who had been silent observers earlier now watched with newfound respect. Whispers followed them. "Did you know they own part of the airline?" He didn't even raise his voice. They were kicked out, and now look. Inside the car, as they pulled away from the airport, Lana looked back and saw the plane they had just left, its silver wings catching the morning sun. Back on the tarmac, Jessica stood alone near the crew shuttle, still watching the plane, and for the first time in her career, she hoped to wear her uniform not to look important, but to be someone better. The flight was over. But for both of them, a new journey had just begun. Moral of the story. 1. Never judge someone by their appearance. True worth isn't measured by clothing, wealth on display, or external status. Respect should be given to all, regardless of how they look. 2. Power doesn't always speak loudly. The most powerful people often carry themselves with humility. Real strength lies in self-control, not domination. 3. Mistakes are human, but growth is a choice. Everyone can make errors in judgment. What matters is the courage to acknowledge them and the willingness to change. 4. Children learn through example. When adults respond to injustice with grace and wisdom, they pass on lessons of dignity and strength to the next generation. 5. Redemption begins with humility. Real apologies don't come from pressure, but from realization. Owning up to our flaws is a first step toward becoming better human beings.